This is a story about trust. How easily it's given, how dangerously it's broken. My name is Richard. I had it all. Success, a beautiful wife, and a perfect life, until a neighbor's warning shattered everything. I installed hidden cameras, hoping to prove her loyalty. But what I saw changed me forever. A storm, a delayed flight, and a live feed revealed my wife in our bed with another man. I went home that night, not to catch a flight, but to confront her. What happened next? Let's just say, betrayal has consequences. My name is Richard. I'm a businessman, a self-made man who clawed his way to the top through sheer determination and an unrelenting work ethic. I built my empire from nothing, starting with a small office and a dream, and over the years, I turned it into a life most people only fantasize about. Luxury cars, a sprawling estate, and a reputation that commanded respect. I had it all. But wealth, as I've learned, is a poor substitute for happiness. 10 years ago, I lost my first wife, Olivia, to cancer. She was my rock, my partner in every sense of the word. Her death left a void in my life that I thought would never be filled. For years, I threw myself into my work, using it as a distraction from the loneliness that gnawed at me. I told myself I didn't need anyone else, that I could survive on my own. But the truth is, no man is an island. We all crave connection, even when we're too proud to admit it. Then, I met Sophia. She was younger, radiant, and full of life in a way that made me feel alive again. Her laughter was infectious, her smile could light up a room, and her beauty was almost otherworldly. She was the kind of woman who turned heads wherever she went, and I was the lucky man who got to call her mine. After years of solitude, I thought I had found happiness again. I married her, believing that she was the missing piece of my life. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Sophia was the ideal wife, attentive, affectionate, and seemingly devoted. We fell into a comfortable routine, our days filled with the kind of mundane moments that make up a life. She would kiss me goodbye in the mornings, her lips warm against mine, and welcome me home with a smile that made the stresses of the day melt away. I traveled for business once a month, leaving her at home for a few days at a time, but I never thought twice about it. Why would I? She was my wife. I trusted her completely. But trust, as I've learned, is a fragile thing. It's easy to give, but once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. The first crack in the foundation of our marriage came in the form of a retired neighbor, an old man who spent his days sitting on his porch, watching the world go by. He was harmless enough, the kind of person you'd nod to in passing but never really engage with. One evening, as I was getting into my car, he stopped me with a look that made my stomach twist. It was the look of someone who knew something you didn't, something they weren't sure they should tell you. "Richard," he said, his voice low and hesitant. "I don't mean to meddle, but I think you should know. There's been a young man coming to your house. Often. Too often, if you ask me." At first, I dismissed it. People love gossip, especially old men with too much time on their hands. It was probably a delivery guy or a friend of Sophia's. Or maybe it was nothing at all. My wife was loyal, wasn't she? I had no reason to believe otherwise. But doubt is a funny thing. Once it takes root, it doesn't go away. Even after I brushed off the conversation, the thought lingered in the back of my mind, a quiet, nagging voice whispering, "What if?" I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but I also wasn't the type to be played for a fool. I decided to test Sophia, but discreetly. It didn't hurt to reconfirm. I came up with a plan, a perfect plan. Under the guise of a routine home maintenance upgrade, I hired a crew to install hidden cameras around the house. They were small, unobtrusive, and placed in strategic locations where they wouldn't be noticed. Just a few well-placed devices, enough to see everything I needed without Sophia ever knowing they were there. And then I waited. A month later, when I left for my usual business trip, I checked the footage from another state, expecting to catch something, or, deep down, hoping I wouldn't. I watched hours of recordings, my eyes glued to the screen as I fast-forwarded through mundane moments. Sophia, making coffee, watching TV, scrolling through her phone. There was nothing unusual. Deliveries, a couple of friends stopping by, normal household activity. But no mystery man. No secret lover. Relief washed over me. I had doubted my wife for no reason. Guilt crept in, making me feel foolish for ever listening to the neighbor. He was wrong. Sophia was faithful. I closed the surveillance feed and put it out of my mind. I had dismissed the old man's warning. I thought that was the end of it. But fate had other plans. Life had settled back into its usual rhythm after that first month of surveillance. Sophia and I went about our days as always, the incident with the neighbor fading into the background like a bad dream. She kissed me goodbye that morning like a loving wife, her lips soft and warm against mine, and I left for the airport with my bags packed, ready for another business trip. Just another routine departure. Nothing felt off. As far as I knew, my life was in order. My marriage was intact. But fate has a way of stepping in when you least expect it. The weather took a turn for the worse, and by the time I reached the airport, my flight was delayed. First for an hour, then 2, then indefinitely. The storm outside wasn't letting up, and there was nothing to do but wait. I found myself stuck in the airport lounge, scrolling through my phone, checking emails, and watching the minutes crawl by. Boredom set in quickly. Out of sheer boredom, I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. It wasn't suspicion that made me check. I had already dismissed the idea that Sophia could be unfaithful. No, I just wanted to see what she was up to. She might be watching TV, curled up with one of those romance novels she liked, or maybe she was already in bed, waiting for me to text her when I landed. But I never expected what I saw. Sophia wasn't alone. She was in our bed, wrapped around a younger man, completely lost in each other. Their bodies moved together in a way that was both intimate and grotesque, a betrayal so visceral it felt like a physical blow. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, each shard cutting deeper than the last. I felt a rage settling deep in my chest, a cold, calculating anger that demanded action. I was supposed to leave town tonight. But now, I was going home to confront my wife. I stepped out of the terminal, my grip tight around my bag. There was no hesitation. I hailed a taxi nearby, climbed in, and gave the driver my address. As the car pulled away from the airport, I pulled out my phone, eyes locked onto the live feed. On the screen, I saw them, my wife and her lover. They moved from the bed to the bathroom, their bodies pressed together under the warm spray of the shower. It was a steamy, intimate moment, one that should have been reserved for us. They were completely at ease, unaware that their little fantasy was about to come crashing down. I watched as they laughed, touched, kissed, completely oblivious. Minutes later, the taxi slowed to a stop in front of my house. I paid the driver, grabbed my bag, and stepped out. My focus was razor sharp. I moved to the door, pulling out my spare key. The lock turned smoothly, and I slipped inside like a ghost. The house was just as I left it, except for the trail of clothes leading toward the bathroom. His shirt, her dress, his pants, their underwear, carelessly discarded like their shame. I took my time, stepping over them, my movements precise and controlled. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I moved quickly, heading straight to the circuit breaker and flipping the switch. Instantly, the house plunged into darkness. More importantly, the hot water cut out. The reaction was immediate. From behind the bathroom door, I heard the sudden confusion, as warm comfort turned ice cold and everywhere dark. Perfect. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I kicked the door open with enough force to send it slamming against the wall. A violent crack echoed through the room. Inside, they both froze for a second, and the only sound was the water still running. Then, I switched on the flashlight, the beam landing directly on them. Sophia screamed, terrified, as if it were a home invasion. Her lover, dripping wet, scrambled backward, his hands moving wildly to cover himself. But there was nowhere to hide. And then I stepped forward. Slow, deliberate, my phone in hand, camera rolling. I wanted every second of this captured. No words yet. No reaction. Just the quiet horror settling into Sophia's wide, tear-filled eyes as she finally recognized the shadow standing in the doorway. That was when the begging began. Richard, please, Sophia sobbed, her voice trembling. I can explain. It's not what you think. I didn't respond. My presence alone had already shattered whatever fantasy they were living in. Now it was time to make them feel the weight of their choices. Get out, I said, my voice calm but firm. Sophia hesitated, eyes darting between me and the shivering boy toy beside her. She made a move for a towel, probably hoping to salvage whatever dignity she had left. I snatched it away before she could wrap it around herself. No, I said. You stand there exactly as you were when I caught you. They had no choice but to obey. Dripping wet, naked, and exposed, they shuffled into the living room, arms wrapped around themselves for cover. The young lover kept glancing around, shifting on his feet like a caged animal looking for an escape. I saw the moment he realized his problem. His clothes were gone. I let that realization sink in. I had hidden them after I cut off the power supply, knowing exactly how this would play out. He was trapped, vulnerable. Then came my final command to the lover. Get out of my house. The kid looked at me, panic flashing in his eyes. Please. I can't go out like this. I didn't repeat myself. Instead, I stepped over to a drawer, pulled it open, and took out my pistol. The sound of the slide racking back echoed through the room. I said, get out. That was all it took. He bolted. No more hesitation, no more begging. Just the slap of bare feet against the cold floor as he sprinted for the door. How did he make it home? I don't know. I don't care. Sophia was still sobbing, still pleading for me to stop recording. Her bare shoulders trembled as she knelt on the cold floor. I looked down at her, my voice steady. So this is what you do when I'm not around. She sobbed harder, shaking her head frantically. I made a mistake, she said. A mistake. That's what she called it. A mistake. But what she did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A calculated decision made over and over again. Every time she let another man touch her in my house, in my bed. I tilted my head, watching her unravel, then delivered the fatal blow. You do realize you signed a prenup, right? She froze. Her sobbing stopped as if I had just hit pause on her breakdown. Her eyes were wide with disbelief, trying to process what she had just heard, trying to find a way out. I didn't give her one. I stepped closer, my voice slow, deliberate. You forfeit everything in the case of infidelity. She collapsed onto the floor, crying. Everything she thought she had locked in was slipping through her fingers like sand. I crouched down, making sure she heard every word of what came next. You'll sign whatever I put in the divorce papers. I paused, letting it settle before delivering the final warning. If you contest anything, this video, and all the others, go to everyone you know. Her head snapped up. She knew I meant it. And just like that, the fight in her was gone. No more excuses. No more begging. Just silence. She was utterly broken. I left Sophia in the living room, her sobs echoing through the house as I retreated to my home office. The adrenaline that had fueled me during the confrontation began to ebb, leaving behind a hollow emptiness. I sat at my desk, staring at the blank screen of my computer, my mind racing, but my body eerily still. The weight of what had just happened settled over me like a heavy fog, suffocating and inescapable. I had always prided myself on being a man of control, someone who could navigate any situation with precision and calm. But this was different. This wasn't a business deal gone wrong or a competitor trying to undermine me. This was personal. This was my life, my marriage, my trust, shattered in a single moment. The divorce didn't take long. I made sure of that. Sophia didn't contest anything. She knew better. She had already lost the life I gave her, the comfort, the security, the illusion of love. Everything she had with me was gone in a matter of months. When the papers were finalized, she packed up and left. Just like that, she was out of my house, out of my life. I watched from the window as the moving truck pulled away, carrying the remnants of our life together. There was no final goodbye, no last attempt to explain or apologize. Just silence. And then, it was over. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work. Business had always been my refuge, my constant in a world that felt increasingly unpredictable. Numbers didn't lie. Contracts didn't cheat. Work was simple. You put in the effort, you saw results. It was a stark contrast to the chaos of my personal life. But even as I buried myself in meetings, negotiations, and deals, I couldn't escape the lingering questions that haunted me. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind? I replayed every moment of my marriage to Sophia, searching for clues I might have overlooked. Had there been a shift in her behavior? A change in the way she looked at me? A hesitation in her touch? The truth was, there had been no obvious signs. Sophia had been careful, calculated. She had played her role perfectly, right up until the moment she didn't. And that was what hurt the most, the realization that I had never really known her at all. The divorce proceedings were swift but brutal. Sophia's lawyers tried to argue that the prenup was unfair, that she deserved more than what she was getting. But they didn't have a leg to stand on. The evidence was undeniable. The videos, the photos, the timestamps. I had made sure of that. When it became clear that she wasn't going to win, Sophia stopped fighting. She signed the papers without a word, her signature a shaky scrawl that barely resembled the confident flourish I had once admired. She walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back and the few personal items I allowed her to take. I didn't feel triumphant. If anything, I felt a strange sense of pity. Sophia had gambled and lost, and now she was left with nothing. But pity didn't change what she had done. It didn't erase the betrayal. In the months that followed, I found myself reflecting on the nature of trust and love. I had always believed that love was enough, that if you loved someone deeply enough, they would never betray you. But I was wrong. Love isn't enough. It never was. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. Sophia had shattered that trust, and in doing so, she had destroyed everything we had built together. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the lies, the deception, the calculated betrayal. She had made a choice, over and over again, to betray me, and that was something I could never forgive. I still believe in love. I know it's real because I loved Olivia, my first wife. She was my partner, my confidant, my everything. But love and trust are two different things. Love is a feeling, an emotion. Trust is a choice, a commitment. And if you don't understand that, you're setting yourself up for pain. I didn't date after Sophia. I had no interest in starting over, no desire to open my heart again. I was done. I focused on my business, on building something that would outlast me. Work became my solace, my purpose. But even as I moved forward, I couldn't shake the lessons I had learned. Trust is fragile. It's easy to give, but once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. And betrayal? Betrayal should never go unpunished. When someone betrays you, you don't cry about it. You don't beg for answers. You don't give them a second chance. You handle it. You make sure they feel the consequences. And then, you walk away without looking back. Looking back, I've learned a few things. Hard lessons. Lessons I never thought I'd have to learn. I used to believe in marriage. I thought love was enough. That was my mistake. I thought if you loved someone, if you gave them everything, they would never betray you. I was wrong. Now I know better. Marriage? It's just a contract. A piece of paper. And like any contract, it can be broken. It can be thrown away. And when it is, the only thing left is the damage. But love? Love exists. Just don't mistake love for trust. I still believe in love. I know it's real because I loved Olivia, my first wife. But love and trust? Those are two different things. And if you don't understand that, you're setting yourself up for pain. And never let betrayal go unpunished. When someone betrays you, you don't cry about it. You don't beg for answers. You don't give them a second chance. You handle it. You make sure they feel the consequences. And then, you walk away without looking back.